Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening up a file that, well, it sits right at the chaotic, beating heart of the UK care system. It's a topic that if you're interested in fostering, or if you're already doing it and feeling a bit burnt out, you eventually hit it like a brick wall.
Oh, yeah.
The battle of the acronyms. LA versus IFA.
It sounds so incredibly dry, doesn't it? Like we're about to compare two different types of, I don't know, car insurance, local authority versus independent fostering agency.
It really does. And I think for a lot of people, especially when you're just starting your research, it feels like a purely bureaucratic distinction. Does it really matter whose logo is on the letterhead?
Right.
But as we dug into the sources for this, we're talking government guidelines, the 2025-26 financial breakdowns, transfer protocols from the fostering network, and operational details from agencies like Capstone and Swiss. It became so clear that this is not just about paperwork.
No, absolutely not. It's the difference between how you live your life day to day. It completely changes who answers the phone when things go wrong at 2 in the morning. It changes your bank balance. It changes whether you feel like a well-meaning volunteer or a trained professional.
That is the core of it. So our mission for this deep dive is really to decode the structural and, I guess, the practical differences between these two routes.
Yeah.
We want to move past the jargon and look at two big themes that kept coming up in the research: support and professionalism.
And just to set the scene, because context is everything here, we need to understand the pressure the whole system is under right now.
Right. So let's unpack the local authority side first. The local authority, or LA, that's your local council, they have this statutory duty.
Which is the legal obligation.
Exactly. The legal obligation to look after children in their area who can't live with their birth families. They are the legal parents, essentially.
But, and this is the huge but that you see in all the reports, they are often massively underfunded and just completely overwhelmed. Yes. The sources paint a picture of a system that is, well, it's bursting at the seams.
And that's where the independent fostering agencies, or IFAs, come in. These are private organizations, sometimes charities, co-ops, sometimes companies, that work alongside the LAs.
Think of it as an overflow system. That's how it started.
An overflow system.
Yeah. The local authority will always try to place a child with their own in-house carers first. And why? Because it's cheaper for them.
Of course.
They don't have to pay a management fee to an external agency. It makes total sense fiscally.
But when they can't find a bed in-house, which happens constantly because of the chronic shortage of carers, or if the child has complex needs that their team isn't equipped for, that's when they pick up the phone.
They call an agency like Capstone or Swiss. And this brings us to the first major structural difference that really impacts you as a carer, the postcode lottery.
This was fascinating to map out. So if you foster for your local authority, you are essentially tied to that specific geographic council. If you live on the border of a county, say you're right on the edge of Derbyshire, you can only foster children from Derbyshire.
Correct. You are geo-locked. But an IFA covers a whole region.
A much wider area.
Yeah, they might cover the North or the Midlands. They aren't restricted by those council boundary lines, so that whole lottery issue just disappears.
So practically speaking, does that mean an ISFA has a much larger pool of children to match you with?
Exactly. And this is so crucial for stability. If you're with an LA and they are desperate for a bed and you have an empty room, you might get a call for a child that isn't really a good match for your family.
But the pressure is on.
The pressure is huge to say yes, because you might be the only option in that specific postcode.
Which just sets everyone up for failure. The carer is stressed, the child is in the wrong environment, and then the placement breaks down.
So often it does, whereas an agency, they're taking referrals from multiple local authorities. So they might have 50 referrals on a Monday morning from 5 different councils. They can look at your skills, your family, your experience, and say, okay, we aren't just finding a bed here. We are finding the right match.
That distinction matching versus just placing seems to be a really big deal.
Yeah.
It feels less like crisis management and more like strategic planning.
That's a fair way to put it. But, the strategy falls apart if the support isn't there when reality hits. And that brings us to what I call the 2 a.m. test.
The 2 a.m. test.
Yeah.
We hear about this all the time. You're a foster carer. It's the middle of the night. The child in your care is having a crisis. Maybe a huge mental health episode. Maybe they've run away and the police just brought them back. You need help. and you need it now.
If you're with a local authority, you're calling the Emergency Duty Team, or EDT. Now, I don't want to disparage them. These are dedicated social workers, but they are often covering the entire social services remit for the whole county overnight.
So, everything.
Child protection, adult social care, mental health assessments, the lot. So you call, and you might get a voicemail. Or you get a stranger who has no idea who you are or who the child is. Oh, that's awful.
It is. You're explaining the child's entire trauma history to a stranger while the crisis is unfolding right there in your living room. You feel completely on your own.
And the sources from agencies like Swiss and Capstone highlight a very different model.
It's night and day. The private agencies typically have a 247 support line staffed by qualified social workers who actually work for the agency.
So it's someone you might even know.
Often, it's someone you've met, or at the very least, they can pull up the child's file on their screen immediately.
Swiss specifically mentions capping their social worker caseloads at 12 or fewer. I wanted to dwell on that number because it seems really significant.
It's incredibly low compared to the statutory sector.
Yeah.
I mean, in LA, a social worker might be juggling 25, 30, sometimes even more cases. They're just firefighting all day.
Right.
They can't be proactive. If you have a caseload of 12, you actually know the names of the foster carer's own kids. You know the dog's name. You know what makes the child tick.
So when you call for support, you aren't starting from scratch. You're getting immediate, informed advice. Precisely. And let's look at Capstone specifically because their source material mentioned this model called MATTE.
Yes, the Multidisciplinary Assessment, Treatment, and Therapy Service.
It sounds impressive, but what does it actually mean for a carer on a Tuesday afternoon? It means you don't have to wait for the NHS. We all know the reality of CMHS, the child and adolescent mental health services. The waiting list can be months, sometimes years.
And if you have a child who needs therapy now, waiting a year is just not an option.
It's not. So MATTS means Capstone has its own in-house team. It's not just a social worker. It's access to clinicians, therapists, education specialists. If a child needs therapy, the agency arranges it straight away.
That is a massive difference. It shifts the role of the carer from being just a bed provider who drives kids to appointments to being part of a professional therapeutic team.
Professional is the key word. I've spoken to carers who made the switch from an LA. They all say the same thing. I stopped feeling like a babysitter and started feeling like a colleague.
And speaking of feeling like a colleague, there was a unique detail in the Capstone source material about their ownership. They're an employee ownership trust.
Which is pretty rare in this sector. It effectively means the agency is owned by its staff and carers.
So it's not a big corporation.
No, it's not some venture capital firm trying to squeeze profit. It's more like a co-op. It helps keep that family feel, even though they're a national agency. Everyone's invested in the outcome because they literally own a piece of it.
That feeling of being valued, it brings us to the topic people often feel awkward discussing in care: money.
We have to talk about it. You cannot provide high-level therapeutic care if you're worried about paying the heating bill. It's just a fact.
So let's break down the two-pot system because I think this confuses a lot of people.
Right. So pot one is the fostering allowance. This is money for the child.
For clothes, food, hobbies.
Exactly. School trips, pocket money. It is not your income. It's to cover the cost of looking after the child. Both LAs and IFAs pay this.
And then pot two is the professional fee.
Yes. This is your income. This is payment for your time, your skill, your reports, your meetings. This is the salary, essentially.
And the sources suggest this is where IFAs generally pull ahead.
Generally, yes. IFAs tend to pay a higher professional fee. And this is so important because it changes the viability of fostering as a career. If the fee is high enough, a carer can afford to do it full time.
And not have to juggle a 9-to-5 job as well.
Right. Which, again, goes back to stability for the child. If you are there when they get home from school because you don't have to rush off to another job, the placement is so much more likely to succeed.
We have some numbers here for the 2025-26 tax year. It's worth highlighting the tax relief because a lot of people don't realize how generous the UK system is for carers. It's called qualifying care relief.
It's huge, yeah. The government basically acknowledges that fostering is a special status.
So let's look at the maths. For 2025-26, there is a fixed household exemption of £19,690. That's tax-free straight off the bat.
Right, that's your baseline. And then on top of that, you get a weekly tax relief for every child in your care.
It's £415 per week for a child under 11, and 495 pounds per week for a child over 11.
So let's do the quick maths for someone listening. If you have one teenager, say age 14.
Okay, so that's roughly 25,000 pounds a year in weekly relief, the 495 times 52 weeks, plus the 19,000 pounds fixed exemption.
Your total tax-free threshold is, what, around 45,000 pounds?
So you could be earning nearly 45,000 pounds a year from fostering and pay zero income tax.
Correct. You still fill out a tax return, but the bill is zero, which is massive. It reinforces the idea that this is a viable professional career.
But here's the hurdle, isn't it? We have listeners who are currently fostering for an LA. They're hearing about the lower caseloads, the MATS therapy, the professional fees, but they are terrified to move.
It's the fear of the paperwork.
The dreaded Form F.
Oh, the Form F, the document that details your entire life, your childhood, relationships, finances. It takes months to compile when you first start.
And the myth is that if you switch agencies, you have to rip it all up and start from scratch.
It's a huge myth. But looking at the transfer of foster carers protocol, which is the industry standard, it is simply not true.
It's not.
No. The protocol was created specifically to stop agencies or LAs from holding carers hostage. It says your Form F travels with you. It just needs an update.
So instead of the 6 to 8 months it might take a new carer to get approved, a transfer is what?
Usual 3 to 4 months. It's designed to be seamless. You resign from one and start with the other effectively on the same day.
But the bigger fear isn't the paperwork, it's the children. The question we always see is, if I leave the local authority, do I lose the kids currently in my home?
This is the emotional anchor. This is what keeps people in bad situations. They think, I can't leave because they'll take the kids away as punishment.
And what does the protocol say about that?
The protocol is governed by one golden rule, the paramountcy principle.
Which means the welfare of the child is paramount.
Always. Meaning, if a child has been with you for 2 years, is settled in school, calls you mom or dad, the local authority cannot just rip them out of your home because you changed employers.
Because that would be actively harmful to the child.
Demonstrably harmful. So practically what happens is a protocol meeting. The LA and the new agency say, Capstone, sit down. They look at the child's needs. If staying with you is what's best, then the child moves with you. The LA just starts paying the agency instead.
So the funding stream changes, but the child's breakfast table doesn't.
Exactly. The protocol exists to prevent unplanned endings. It protects the child from the bureaucracy.
That is such a crucial takeaway. Don't let the fear of losing a placement stop you from seeking better support.
Because, and this is the hard truth, if you burn out because you have no support at 2 a.m., the placement will end anyway. You'll crumble.
Right.
Moving to an agency that supports you is actually the best way to protect that placement long term.
Let's talk a bit more about training before we wrap up. We mentioned the MAT service, but generally, how does the training vibe differ?
It's about relevance. In an LA, training is often generic because they have to cover everyone from respite carers to long-term specialists in one room. It becomes a tick box exercise.
Necessary, but maybe not specific to the child you're caring for.
Exactly. With the specialist agencies, the training is often therapeutic. It's about understanding trauma response, why a child hides food under their bed, attachment theory. It's training designed to make you a specialist in healing.
It really does seem like the differences between being a service and being a partner.
That's a great way to put it. In the LA, you can feel like a service provider. In a good IFA, you are a partner.
So let's try to summarize this for our listener who's maybe sitting on the fence.
Okay. If you foster with a local authority, you're going direct to the source. You'll likely get younger children, maybe babies, but you're dealing with the system under immense strain. High caseloads, less support out of hours, and generally lower pay.
And if you go independent with an agency like Capstone,
you're likely to get slightly older children, maybe school age or teenagers or sibling groups, but in exchange, you get a capped caseload, so your social worker actually knows you. You get therapeutic support built in, you get a professional fee that might let you foster full-time, and you get that 24/7 safety net.
And the transfer process is protected by protocol to ensure the child's welfare comes first.
Correct. It's a trade-off, but for many, the support of the agency is what makes fostering sustainable.
It's interesting, we often talk about the cost of private agencies because, let's be honest, they do cost the taxpayer more than an in-house placement.
They do. The LA pays a fee.
But hearing about the outcomes, the stability, the therapy...
Well, this raises the provocative thought I want to leave everyone with. We often balk at the profit or fee element in care, but if we start to view foster carers as professionals rather than just volunteers, how does that change things? perhaps the higher cost of an agency is actually an investment. If that extra support prevents one placement breakdown, it saves the system a fortune in the long run. But more importantly, it saves a child from the trauma of moving again. Maybe we need to stop asking what's the cheapest way to house this child and start asking what is the infrastructure needed to heal this child.
That is a powerful place to leave it. If you're a carer feeling alone or someone thinking about taking the leap, look at the support. Ask the hard questions about caseloads. Ask about that 2 a.m. test.
Your resilience matters, so protect it.
Thanks for diving in with us today. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.